Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Weavlings in the Wild, which is brought to you by Atomic Tomaton. It's for one player, ages 13 and up, and games usually run about 20 to 30 minutes. The legendary Fate Weaver Zadara has put her chubby Fate Weavlings on a diet before they gorge her out of house and hovel. However, this has not gone over well, and it has driven them into the nearby Tinder Wilds in search of delicious meats. Fearing the worst for her beloved weavlings, Zadara has sent you, her prized weavling trapper, to bring them home. Weavlings in the Wild is a grid-based solo card crawler, where you must capture the fauna of the Tinder Wilds to lure weavlings back home with succulent meat. You'll collect 10 lured population in order to win the game. However, if you receive 10 wounds or lose 10 population, you will lose and the game will end. Setup on this one is quick and easy. You'll take your main deck of cards and you'll find your trapper card and your player aid. You'll separate those out. Then you'll shuffle the deck and you're going to create this 4x3 grid. Now, all these cards are going to be played face down initially because you'll have to choose where you want your trapper to start. This grid is known as the Tinder Wilds. This is the forest where they're ventured out into and you're going to be moving through and so forth. So you'll place this card, your trapper card, anywhere you want in this grid. Once you place it, the card that was there then gets moved to the discard pile. The rest of the cards are all going to be placed at the top of the deck. This is known as your Wilds deck. Then you'll turn all the cards face up. First thing you're looking for, are there any event cards? There are several different types of event cards. They're going to do various things. So you're going to look for those and you're going to resolve them. In this case, in this example, I should say, we have the Blood Moon, where you're going to go through the main deck. Now, these event cards can cause you to move through this deck pretty quickly. So you got to keep that in mind as you try to quickly pull and lure all your weavlings back from the forest. So the thing here is that this particular one is going to have you search the deck until you find a Vargler, and then you're going to replace it and put it into the discard pile. So those are going to bring out additional cards for you to deal with as you pull these event cards. They're again going to do various things. So through the course of the game, additional areas around the Tinder Wilds will start to get set up. You've got cards like the Banished pile. You've got the Lost population, weavlings you could not save. And you've got wounds that have been inflicted upon you. And then on the other side here, you have your lured population, weavlings you were able to save and bring back, and then your hand of cards. And of course, you have your player aid to guide you through the game. Now, the thing here is that all these different things you set up around this can really just be customized to however you want to do it. But this is how they suggest setting up as you're moving through and playing the game. So let's take a brief look at the different types of cards. Of course, you have your main character, your main card, which is the Trapper. This is the card you'll be performing actions with, moving around the forest and doing various things. And then you have the Weavlings, which is what you're trying to achieve, trying to pull them back to win the game. You need 10 of them, and they're going to require that you feed them meat to lure them back. And then you have traps, various types of traps. These traps are going to be used to capture the beasties, and that's the other type. We have beasties that can inflict wounds on you, or if you happen to trap them, they turn into meat, so you can spin them to grab those weavlings. And we have those event cards that we talked about, causing you to go through your deck, and we'll talk about why that's important to note as you're playing this game. And then finally, we have our wild spirits. The spirits are going to give you boons, different benefits, and abilities as you play and use those cards. Those cards are fantastic because they don't cost you any actions when you use them. So there are 4 phases to every round or every turn of the game. Now, the first phase is the Trapper, where you're using your Trapper, your main character card, to perform actions. You get to perform 3, and there are 3 to choose from. Obviously, as you'd expect, you're going to be moving around this forest or this grid of cards. As you move into position, the other cards shift over to flow where you left from and so forth. So you can only move orthogonal, and every move is an action. So you got to keep that in mind. And then you're going to be trying to collect traps. Now, interesting thing about collecting traps is once you're adjacent to one, then you can collect that trap, but it could chain. If you've got cards in an orthogonal manner next to it, you can grab them. You can't let them split off into 2 different directions, but you can grab left to right, top down, that kind of thing. So you can get multiple trap cards at any time, which is really nice. And when you do get cards, when you pull cards out of this grid, then you're going to put new cards back face down. And your final action available to you is actually using one of those traps. Now, why is that important? Because you need to capture beasties and turn them into meat so you can lure the weavlings back to your side. Now, the thing here is there's several different types of traps. They're all going to work very differently. And it is very self-explanatory on the card exactly how they work. We're not going to do a deep dive into all of them, but I will tell you about a couple of my favorites. Now, the thing to keep in mind with traps too is that once you use them, they're done and out of the game. They move to the banished pile. So use them wisely. Now, the two favorites of mine are the wrecking and the log rolling. Those just wipe out whole rows and columns. And the goal here, right, is to get as many beasties as possible to get all that meat. Now, also, if you happen to hit one of your weavlings with one of those cards, well, they're just going to move to the discard pile to come back in at a later time. So you don't actually lose them, but they do take them out of commission for a while. And as a free action, if you end your movement next to a wild spirit, you can collect that card and put it in your hand for later use. Now, the wild spirits again are going to do various things. They're going to give you a boon, and these different abilities are like giving you extra meat, or they might give you extra actions, or they might allow you to go to the banish pile and collect a trap, or you might be able to turn one of your wound cards into meat. So getting those wild spirits is very important. They're very powerful. You will want to use them frequently. The next phase is all about luring those weavlings to your side. Now you have to have meat to do this. So each of the weavlings will have a meat cost in the corner of the card showing you how much meat is required, and you can lure as many as you have enough meat for. Now, if you overspend in meat, you can't recover that. You just discard those cards. But you'll gather the weavlings up and put them to your lured population area, hoping that you've gathered 10. Phase 3 is all about the beasties. It's time for them to feed. Now, the first thing you're going to look for is all the speed numbers on all the different beast cards in play. And starting with the lowest number, that card will go first, and so forth and so on. And what they're going to do is be trying to eat those weavlings. If they do succeed and they eat a weavling, well, then the weavling moves to the lost population, where the beastie is now satisfied, so they just move to the discard pile. Now remember, as cards come out of this grid, new cards come into play, and everything starts to shift down, and new cards come in face down. So the thing is that those beasties can attack in multiple directions, either up, down. They can attack from the corners, all kinds of different ways. They can go after all your different weavlings. So you need to keep that in mind and strategically get things placed perhaps and move yourself around in order to stop them. The last phase of the round is the travel phase. Now, that bottom row in this grid is going to travel out of the forest, so to say, and the others shift down. Now, all these different cards that are in this bottom row are going to do various things. If you have traps there, they're going to move to the banished area. If you have weavlings there, they're going to move to the lost population. And the beasties, they move to the wounds. They start to cause you wounds. So again, if you have 10 wounds or you have 10 lost population, you're going to lose the game. So you got to keep an eye on this grid and ever shifting how these cards are working and how you're pulling them and using them at the right time. And things can start to escalate quickly in this game. Every time you have to shuffle your main deck of cards, then you have to rotate your wound cards and you have to rotate your weavling cards. What that means is that every time you go to get a new weavling from the forest, well, then it's going to cost additional food if they are unhappy. And you'll see they have little hearts, and when you see the broken heart, that means they're unhappy and you need more food to lure more in. But the beastie cards that become your wounds, they start to escalate as well, how many wounds you have. So every time you shuffle that deck, things just get harder and harder. And by the end, you hope that you were able to lure 10 weavlings in order to win the game, or perhaps you lost by getting 10 wounds or losing 10 weavlings. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, this game is very puzzly. I like that aspect, the ever-shifting grid, cars moving in and out, some really interesting choices to be made as you move through the game for sure. Now, traps are key, right? So you get the right trap and use it at the right time is really what you're after, and you hope to get weavlings and lure them out very quickly because things do escalate fast. Now, the artwork here is very fun, very whimsical, and I like the fact that they already have a couple expansions in mind for this. and take a look at the campaign page to see more about those. But this game has a lot of interesting things going on as you engage as a solo player, which I'm not a big solo player, but this one had me sucked in. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.